What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Phaithful Phanatics Show. As always, I am your host, Dylan Davis. And to my right, my faithful co-host, Mr. Matt McGinty. Give him a follow on Twitter at Matt_McGinty. And of course, if you're new to the channel, if you're new to the show, give us a follow on Twitter at DSM_media. Again, it's at DSM_media on Twitter. Subscribe and like this video on our YouTube page. Turn on notifications and give us a follow on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitch, where Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast and social media information from. Tap into DSM Media. Gint, today we were talking before the show. We're like, do we want to talk about the Eagles? And we'll see. We're going to play it by ear here on the Phaithful Fanatic Show today because this is a happy day. It's a happy show. The vibes feel right today. And tonight's another big night with Thursday Night Football on. Hell of a game, by the way. The Flyers play the Penguins, and the Sixers are back at it on the road in Detroit tonight. So we'll talk about all of it. And of course, we're going to talk about this Sixers 4-game homestand. So let's start there. Obviously, we already talked about the Hawks and the Pistons game last week and earlier this week on the show. But we have not yet been able to discuss the win over Portland. And then obviously last night, the win over the Chicago Bulls. Both wins coming shorthanded for the 76ers on what was that? Monday night they played the Blazers or Tuesday night? Monday night they take down the Blazers with no Joel Embiid, no Tobias Harris, and Danny Green gets hurt midway through the game. And then obviously last night they take down the Chicago Bulls with no Tobias Harris and no Danny Green. So again, just tell me one major takeaway you have from those two games that you're just like, wow, this team is just a lot of fun to watch right now.
So the Sixers in the first 6 games, I'd say, first 5 maybe, just lacked like an identity. You couldn't really pick what this team was. And I think the last couple games, it really started to shape where it did last year. Basically where it did last year, it was just a defensive team. And it's coming from effort. It's not coming from – I mean, obviously Matisse Thybulle and Joel Embiid are all NBA defensive caliber players, but the rest of the team isn't. And you're seeing so much from Tyrese Maxey, George Niang, even Ferk. Ferk has been a 180. He's been awesome, but these guys aren't dimensional-wise. They don't jump off the table. They're not freakishly athletic, but they're just working to make these star-studded guys that we're talking about, Damian Lillard and Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan, even though DeMar DeRozan almost had 40, but they're working. They're making them work, and that's what the Sixers have looked like on that homestand, which was very optimistic. We talked about last show we had, which was, I think, Monday, that there's optimism, and it's continuous on this optimism. Joel hasn't even settled in yet. He hasn't looked like the way he did last year. Still a little bit alarming on a lot of things with Joel, but Doc is finding ways to make other guys succeed, essentially.
Yeah, and we'll get into what's going on with Joel Embiid in just a little bit. By the way, not his biggest fan at the moment. As what I sent you last night. Man, painful night for me, but good night for the 76ers. But there's one thing you said, and that's effort, right? And now I guess that was my next question, but you made me think on it a bit. And my point was, how long can this withstand? How long can these role players, so to speak, these guys that may be a little overachieving right now on both ends of the floor in Furkan Korkmaz, Maxey on the defensive end, George Niang, right? How long can that keep up? Is that a spurt kind of thing? Or are you going to see it throughout the year here and there, but overall this won't keep up? Or when you mention effort, as long as the effort's there, again, I think this is sustainable in a way. Obviously, I'm not saying George Niang, coming off the bench and giving you 26 and 18 or whatever he gave you over the last 2 games is sustainable. I'm not saying that by any stretch of the imagination, but one guy I want to start with is Furkan Korkmaz, and I'm not going to apologize, like sincerely, meaning like he wasn't good before. But when you say he has done a 180, he has done a complete 180 so far this year on both sides of the ball. My biggest thing with Furkan Korkmaz in the past was if he's not knocking down open jump shots, if he's not on from beyond the arc, he's unplayable. And like I meant that at the time, like unplayable, does nothing else offensively for you off the dribble or off the ball. He cannot handle the ball. I hate him in the pick and roll, and he was a liability defensively. And on both sides of the floor, again, he's getting into the paint this year. He's scoring off the dribble. He has ball handling duties he's not turning the ball over at a high rate. And he has improved defensively. Now, don't get me wrong, he gets beat off the dribble here and there. I think the first bucket last night, DeMar DeRozan blew by him and reverse slammed. But everyone gets blown by here and there. He has done a complete turnaround for the Sixers team, and I think it's been pretty big so far to see that improvement from him, because before he was your common role player off the Sixers bench that, one night he could come in and hit 5 threes for you, and then 7 games in a row he would be a minus 11. And I don't think that's the case anymore.
I agree entirely. He's a secondary ball handler right now out of the pick and roll, which we had such a pet peeve of last year, of him being involved with anything like that. But he's filled that void. He's been really good. And then, like you mentioned with the DeMar DeRozan thing, DeMar DeRozan, I'm pretty sure, was number 1 in the NBA last year in isolation scoring. But the fact that Doc is, don't want to say the words comfortable, but he's throwing him at guys like that is a big accomplishment in the Ferk world, in my opinion. They clearly told Ferk, we need you to come back and be not a spot-up jump shooter. You need to be something more. You need to give us more. And he's done everything I assume that they asked of him, because he has been great. Phil mentioned Matisse. Yeah. He's another guy, obviously, we need to jump into. He's been awesome on the defensive end. I think he had like 3 blocks last night, 2 steals. He's been one of the best help defenders in the entire NBA so far this season. The plays he's making are just, again, the word effort is what jumps out to you. Like last night, you saw in transition, sprints all the way back, gets a steal. In transition, splits all the way back, gets a block. The dude is just running half marathons on these plays that he's making. So Matisse is also another guy. The Sixers second unit is just breeding around the word effort. I know I keep using it, but
no,
it's so fitting.
It's true. I guess it's the word of the day. It's the word of the show here for us. But yeah, let's talk about Matisse Thybulle for a second now that Phil brought it up. He led the team in minutes, plus minus, steals, and blocks last night. What do you have? 3 steals and 2 blocks in a starting role against Chicago. And I think no one has ever questioned Matisse Thybulle's defensive performance. No one's ever questioned his effort. No one's ever questioned anything like that. It's always the offensive end. And if he can just be a 36, 37, 38, 36, 37% shooter from beyond the arc, if he's willing to shoot the basketball, he's damn near impossible to take off of the floor. And I mean, last night in a starting role, none of the numbers jump off the page at you, but he gave you 8 points on 2 of 3 from deep. That's gigantic. Shoot when you're open. And if you're Matisse Thybulle, if Matisse Thybulle can become a 3-and-D type of player, he might be the best 3-and-D player in the NBA if he gets a consistent 3-point shot down. Let's see. I love seeing cutting more. That feed from Embiid at the end was wonderful. That's a great point. The double team came. Chicago was kind of leaning towards Joel the entire game. And then you saw at the end of the game, Doc kind of used that against them. Matisse cut backdoor and Joel hit him with kind of like a quarterback pass over 2 players for the finish. But yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. It's his defensive performance is always going to be there. Now, some of the plays this year have kind of been even more so off the charts than I've seen in previous years. Like me and you joked the other day, like I'm waiting for him to go up for a block and just palm that shit and bring it down with him one of these times, because he's very close to doing so. But it's the offensive end. If he's willing to shoot and he's a 36, 37 3-point shooter consistently, Matisse Thybulle will be very difficult to bring off the floor for Doc Rivers. But yeah, dude.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was looking up a stat just to mention, because I guess I'll stick with the positive. I was going to bring up a negative, but I'm going to stick with a positive. And
negative Nancy over here.
Dude, I mean, it comes with the system, right? But Seth Curry has been otherworldly, and he just showed it again last night. That was the next guy I kind of want to jump to. I mean, we talk about a small sample size at the beginning of the year when he was shooting 60+% from 3. He's still hovering around, pretty sure, like 50-something. I mean, you have to start talking on, is this guy on an all-star level so far? And I think the answer is absolutely yes. He is carrying a big load right now with the Sixers, because Embiid, again, has not been playing on the offensive side of the ball. up to what he was last year. And I don't know if he'll get back to last year because last year was MVP form. He was the most dominant player in basketball. So what Seth's been able to do, and again, the Sixers have been shorthanded. It feels like every single
Yeah.
game. Now Tobias is going to be out for a little bit because tested positive for COVID. We missed Embiid in the Portland game.
Now Isaiah Joe has tested positive for COVID.
Isaiah Joe's also out now. I mean, he's just wheeling us to some W's. It feels like.
Well, the biggest thing with Seth, and I think we're gonna have a pretty elongated conversation here, because what can't you say about what he's doing so far for the 76ers? Like you said, in the biggest moments too, being shorthanded, missing Tobias Harris, who has been the second option for the Sixers team, who, Tobias has just constantly over the last 2 to 3 years given you 20 a game, a little over 20 a game. And now Seth's coming in and it's like 23, 26, 19, 22. It's unbelievable on a night in, night out basis that Seth Curry is able to dig deeper into his bag and just keep providing something we didn't know he had. I had a conversation with Scotty last Monday about Seth Curry and about the Sixers team. Do you remember the first show of last year's season? We discussed who's the closer for the Sixers. And because it's, in a perfect world, it's you get Joel Embiid on the block. That's not going to be the case 95% of the time. We mentioned Tobias Harris. You saw Tobias Harris have to close games a little bit last year, right? Seth Curry has closed the last 2 games. And again, small sample size, but to prove that you can do it. And the one thing that I said to Scotty was, he's got to be able to do it off the dribble. It's going to be very difficult to draw something up out of a timeout, game on the line, get Seth free for on the wing or in the corner, get the ball to him, and he's able to hoist up a 3 to end the game. It's, can he do it off the dribble? He's a smaller guard. That's going to make life a little bit more difficult for him when the game's on the line, trying to put him in isolation and get a shot off over somebody. He's doing it. He did it last night against the Chicago Bulls, who had 1 loss up until this point. It's been a lot of fun to watch. I think it continues tonight easily. I think the biggest thing, Gint, and I'll throw this to you now, is his responsibility is becoming larger and larger. So for the longest time last year, Seth Curry and Danny Green, in my opinion, probably had same type of role on offense. It was, when you're open, shoot the ball. But for the most part, the ball's not in your hands. That the ball finds you. You know what I mean? Now, Seth has the ball a ton. He gets into isolation. He plays in the pick and roll with Joe or Drummond, and he just kind of goes to work. And he's that good of a shooter that every time it goes up, you think it's going in.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talked about the Atlanta series because that's where he kind of had like a coming out party. The difference was with the Atlanta series was the rest of the playbook was really stale when he was getting 20 plus. This year it hasn't been the case at all, especially last night. Doc used Joel in a really unique way last night. Put him in space, used him as a screener, used him as a dribble handoff guy with Tyrese Maxey a lot as well. They clearly wanted to attack the rim. Nick Vucevic is not a defensive center by any means. He's not a defensive anchor.
Right.
So they knew that they could get to the rack, and it's what they really used last night. And Doc is putting Seth in those positions to succeed.
Yeah, that's my point. His role has grown exponentially this year.
Yeah, he's drawing things up for him in situations he wouldn't have done that last year. So it's really awesome to see. Like I said, you got to start talking. He's playing at an all-star level. I know, again, we're not even 10 games in yet, but it's a security blanket to have, I should say.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm seeing a couple comments here speaking on his confidence, and it goes back to the Hawks series last year. And it's kind of true. Obviously we talked about it throughout the Hawks series and post that, and it was kind of in that series, Seth showed you he has a lot more in his bag than we ever thought when they made that trade for Josh Richardson. And his, it all comes down to confidence. How many times would you see Seth Curry kind of hesitate or pass up an open look in the NBA? A little bit of a window is an open look, and Seth Curry would pass it up or hesitate and just move the ball around and swing it. And now that's not the case. He's confident off the dribble. It's a lot of fun to watch. Obviously, there's a comment here that says, not sure how many teams' best players don't close out games. I'd like to see Joel continue to try and close games. You have a point. And Joel's definitely going to have opportunities to close games, but it's very difficult, in my opinion, when our best player is a 7'2" center, who's going to see a lot of double teams down the wire. I always think of Denver when they're healthy. Nikola Jokic is Denver's best player. Now, maybe I'm wrong here, but when Jamal Murray's healthy, Jamal Murray closes games, balls in his hands in the last possession. For the most part, Jokic gets looks sometimes at the end of the games, but Jamal Murray is their closer. So it's not always it's a lot more difficult when your best player is 7'2",
Yeah,
and he's not the most reliable with putting the ball on the ground at the end of a game.
100%. When your best player can't break people down off the dribble 30 feet away from the basket, it's tough to. He's not Damian Lillard. He's not. Everyone get out of my way. I'll score. It's okay.
Right.
Joel Embiid definitely will get talked about in the negative segment for this homestand.
Yeah.
But last positive I wanted to bring up is Tyrese Maxey on the defensive end as well.
Oh, I got more positives for you, brother. But yeah, we'll start there.
Okay. Well, yeah, we'll jump to that one. Dude, Tyrese Maxey last year looked out of control on the defensive end. Because I mean, dude, when these lottery guys, these Kentucky guys, Duke guys, when they go into college, they're the most athletic people on the court. When they're in high school, they're the most athletic people on the court. So you just rely on your athleticism. And you get to the NBA, and it's the jump that you hear. It's not like that anymore for him. I don't know if they really took a step back, watched defensive film, and just showed him situations where maybe he's flying out a guy that is a shooter, and they're just taking and going right by him. He's just playing strong, making people play in front of him, which when people are in front of him, he's a good defender. When he came out of college, he was a good defender. He's really good at picking up guys three-quarter court, making guards with the ball feel uncomfortable, and you're seeing that a ton with these star-studded backcourts too. This guy's getting tough assignments every night, and he's really stepped up to the task the last couple games. We had talked about if we think he gets removed from the starting lineup. One, I think Shake might be in the doghouse a little bit, but Tyrese Maxey's not going anywhere with the way he's playing right now.
Now, me and you have always talked about his motor. He's just like an Energizer bunny out there. One thing that kind of stuck out to me with what you just said, would you break it down to as simple as it's discipline? That's what it comes down to for him on the defensive end. You said he's making life difficult for guys. He can pick you up 3/4 length. His motor, he's just going to be that pest. He's so quick. He's so fast. He's a high energy guy. If he's disciplined on the defensive end, that's kind of what I took away from what you just said there. Not just running full speed out at an open shooter out the 3-point line where you're going to try to run him off the 3-point line, but then you can't recover because he's already blown by you. And now he's putting Joel Embiid in a 2-on-1 situation, or he's just got an easy path to the bucket. Tyrese Maxey on the defensive end has been phenomenal so far in this early season. I saw the numbers against Trae Young and then against Damian Lillard, I believe. Now again, he's not just locked on to Trae Young and Damian Lillard all game long, but when they were his assignment for a short period of time, he made life difficult for them. And I think that was huge in both wins in my mind. Again, I picked against them against Portland. And I kind of just want to take a quick break on just kind of going through all the positives because I got a few more for you. But these two games, not only were they just like fun and like positive wins, they were big wins, dude. I don't care if it's game 7 and 8 on the year. I mean, I do a little bit. Obviously, if these can happen in February, March, and April, then that tells you something as well. But earlier in the year, you're so shorthanded. Again, I picked against them before I knew Toby was out due to COVID. I thought, I don't know, no Joel tonight. I just don't like them again. Dame and McCollum coming to town. That backcourt's going to give Seth and Danny and Tyrese issues. They didn't. And they kind of beat up on the Portland Trailblazers. Andre Drummond almost gives you a triple-double in a starting role, right? And then you come into last night. No Toby, no Danny. You're missing two starters. We could say 3 starters if we want to. And you dominate the Bulls for 4 quarters. Now, obviously, they made it close in the 4th quarter, and it got nerve-wracking for a second. But at the end of the day, you held on because you were able to hit shots down the stretch of a close game. They were just huge wins. I cannot stress it enough. anytime you can get a win, I don't care who it is in this league when you're shorthanded, it's big, let alone teams that, one has one of the best backcourts in NBA, but they don't look like a good team right now. We saw them lose to the Cavs last night. But then the almighty top 3 seeded, lock it in, Chicago Bulls, one loss on the year. They're already better than the 76ers. 76ers just whooped their ass for 4 quarters, missing 2 starters. So it was a huge win, dude. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's just a testament to what Doc is doing. And Doc has his flaws. Don't get me wrong; everyone knows that. But what he's instilling is just a culture, and you're seeing that from, like I keep bringing up, the second unit. I mean, you look at the contracts of some of these guys that are giving us, like for instance, Ferk. Ferk is on a $5 million deal, I'm pretty sure, and he's outplaying that contract entirely. Andre Drummond's on the vet minimum. Seth Curry's on a, like, for what his contract,
$8 million or whatever.
Yeah, Georges Niang, like they're all playing on small contracts and they're just buying in and, like I said, just stealing wins in the beginning of the year that you wouldn't get. I remember last year, the first game Joel Embiid sat out. It might have been against Cleveland, and we got smoked. And these are just games in previous seasons we would chalk up as losses because Joel didn't play, let alone Tobias Harris as well. But they're not standing down. They're figuring out ways to win. And it all goes back to, honestly, Seth just carrying an offensive load so far.
All right, that's where Gint is attributing the shorthanded success to is Seth Curry. It's very hard to argue with. I'm not going to argue against it because I think it's the truth, but there's a lot of components to what's going well right now, and someone we haven't talked about is right here. This dude is something else. Like I get it. I get the minivan is on a roll right now, and I don't know how long it's sustainable for. But my God, dude, like, hold on. I'm trying to pull up. I forget exactly the numbers he put up against Portland off the bench. 21. Here's the best part. Not just 21. 21, 5, 5, and a block. 7 of 16 from the field, 4 of 5 from the free throw line. Only 1 turnover for Georges Niang. And then he comes in last night off the bench again, shorthanded, plays 32 minutes, shoots 50% from the field, 50% from beyond the arc, 2 of 2 from the line, and gives you 18, 3, 1, and a steal last night.
Yeah, he's been unbelievable.
He's something else, bro.
Yeah, he's the upgrade they got out of him is insane. And I hate to harp on things, but I would just love to see him paired next to Ben because he is like the perfect fit to stand next to Ben Simmons. But keep it with what we got right now. And he's been, again, the contract we got him for, he's been just outplaying it entirely. I knew he was going to be a jump shooter when he came here. Everyone knew that. He shot 42 or 43% last year. But the way he's able to guard for us right now is probably the biggest thing. He's playing tough. He's playing bigger guys, and he's not standing down. And it just attributes back to the word effort. And Georges Niang is probably the head of that train currently because he's not supposed to be the defender he's giving us right now.
No, Georges Niang, like playoff basketball vibes is what I got from some of his buckets and some of his N1s and his, I don't know, dude. Yeah, 3 N1s in the last, was that last night or over 2 games? Has to be over the last 2 games, I would imagine. But yeah, he's attacking the rim. He's finishing at the rim. He's not shy. Let me just throw that out there. Like, even on nights, the dude's constantly going to give you around 3 threes a game because he's chucking 9 or 10 of them off the bench. And I love that. Like, yeah, he might not be a 40% three-point shooter. He might not be 39%. He could be, and he's not hesitant. And that's what you need off this Sixers bench when you talk about needing scoring. Portland, he had 3. Oh, wow. He had 3 N1s against Portland. But on the defensive end, you're right. And it goes back. There was someone had put up a screen recording last night of his defense on the second to last possession or last possession. I forget. Not the Embiid block, but it was the possession before that, I think. And when I go back to that Kai Carlin interview we had, and he just talks about Niang's basketball IQ and always being in the right spot and just knowing where to be on both ends of the floor. And you're just seeing it over and over again. And it's like, wow, this dude is the perfect fit so far through 8 games. And I think the beautiful thing about it, again, is what I kind of just alluded to. It's not like he's out there, right, giving you 26 and 18 and he's shooting like 70% from three because he's just on fire right now and this is what you're getting from him. No, you're just getting 26 and 18 because he's a willing shooter and a willing driver off the bench to go and get you buckets when you need. And he's willing to shoot from beyond the arc. And yeah, 3 or 4 of them are going to go in per game. It's dude, I don't know if I've ever been so happy about a role player, a bench player before in my life. You know, I always I always hate on Philly fans, my own fan base for when we overvalue and overhype these role players who just aren't that talented. He's the man, bro. Like, where do I got to go on DH gate or something? Because I know I don't think Dick's Sporting Goods is selling any Niang jerseys. Are they again?
I don't think so. I think they're worried about getting the Spectrum stuff in right now.
But yeah, man. I mean, I don't know. Anything else you got, or do you want to get into the negative?
No, I mean, you talked a lot about the positives, and there is a lot. That's why, but just like upgrades everywhere from last year, man. Like Mike Scott to Niang is just an app. Furkan year 2020 to Furkan year 2021 is a huge upgrade. Same thing with Seth, and it's showing. They have it. This feels like a trap game tonight because we're on such a high, but it should keep rolling into tonight. I don't know if Embiid been ruled in or out yet.
I haven't seen.
Well, and another shout out is what Andre. Oh yeah, you already mentioned it. What Andre Drummond did in the Portland game was phenomenal, and it's exactly what we wanted to sign up for when we got him, just to steal wins on nights Embiid's not playing. But just to jump into a very few negatives of the homestand, truthfully, very few. Philly has to get bigger on the wings. I mean, you look at I think all 4 games of the homestand, they got out rebound by almost double digits. They got out rebound the last 2 games by double digits. You can't rely on Embiid and Drummond to pull down every single rebound. Yeah. And they're not. I mean, they're not finding ways to hit the glass. But again, they're getting bailed out by tough defense and scoring the ball, finding ways to score the ball, I should say. But if they don't find a way to rebound, there's going to be nights where they're going to be in trouble. And I hate to say it because there is flaws because we are on such a high, but it's a pretty important aspect of the game, and they are struggling in that aspect right now.
Well, yeah. What were the numbers that I read on Monday? The Sixers are 27th or 28th in rebounding, and they don't hit the offensive glass at all. And I think Joel only brought down 9 boards or so last night. So yeah, it is definitely a worry. You cannot give teams, especially bad teams, second chances against you. It's going to give them life. Kind of not to jump into tonight, but just kind of a prelude into tonight is like Detroit is no test for the 76ers, shorthanded or not. You know, it's hard to say if Danny Green, Tobias Harris, and Joel Embiid aren't playing that the 76ers should win a game. But you can't give a bad team and a young team like the Detroit Pistons on their home floor second opportunity after second opportunity, because once some of those second opportunities get kicked out for 3 balls and they start knocking those down, then you get an offensive board and go straight up with it, and it's an N1 and you get the crowd involved. That's how bad teams find ways to stay in games. And they find a way to stay in games late, Gint, that's when they get the confidence to go out and win a game that they should not. So it's a great point. It is definitely a weakness the Sixers have so far. Just overall team rebounding, hitting the glass. You can't rely on your 2 7-footers when they're on the floor to just go up and get boards. I mean, it's definitely a weakness when it comes to the small backcourt though. When it's Joel Embiid out there with Furkan Korkmaz, Tyrese Maxey, Seth Curry, and whoever
started last night.
Right.
The Sixers started 4 guards last night around Joel Embiid.
Right.
And don't get me wrong, on offense it looks pretty and you're spacing the floor a little bit, but something I'd really love to see them kind of do, and maybe even to close out some games, is run a lineup with Tobias, even though obviously this isn't going to happen anytime soon because Tobias is out, but
at the 5.
Tobias at the 3, Tobias, Niang, and Embiid, and just get really big, which I don't know if they'll ever do that because Doc loves Tobias at the 4, and I love Tobias at the 4 as well, but they're just really small. And again, not to harp on someone that's not here, but when Ben was here, that wasn't a thing.
Right. It was kind of the reverse. Your point guard was 6'10". No, I feel you for sure. Again, Chase wants to know why you don't get a cool mic like mine.
So my mic is hooked up to my PC, and I have never taken it out, and I need to get one though. It's been a year in the making for me to get one.
Chase, don't you got anything better to go do, bro?
No, he's a Steelers fan. They're 500.
Hey, this is the one year where we really can't say much, can? Well, the last 2 years.
I'm a Rams fan, so I can speak.
What? What? You didn't even go like Cardinals because Zach Ertz went there. Like you said I'm a Rams fan out of left field. Comment that I wanted to get to. If the Sixers lose tonight, does it cancel out yesterday's win, Gint?
No, absolutely not. Yesterday's win, again, you're missing Tobias Harris off the roster that you have right now. And you had a pencil and paper, and they said, do you think this is a win or a loss comparing the two rosters? I don't see anyone saying that Philly probably should have won that game last night, but they stole another win. Now, does that mean it's okay to lose to the 1-6 Detroit Pistons? No, not in any way.
No, but like I said, if Joel Embiid is not playing tonight and Danny Green's still out, it's very difficult, no matter how bad of the opponent is, to say that the 76ers already without 2-5, with the roster they have in place, is missing Joel Embiid, Tobias Harris, and Danny Green. It's very hard to be like, oh, well, they should still beat the Pistons.
You're looking at like they only have a rotation piece.
Right, and Isaiah Joe isn't playing, and he would be in that rotation if they were missing that many guys. Is Jaden Springer on the active roster?
I think he's with the G League team.
All right, maybe we get some first round pick action tonight. You would just think that, and again, not to just be an ass, but you would think that for a team with championship aspirations, your first round pick could maybe come in and contribute a little something off the bench. Not a guy that we're just going to stash down in the G League and let him develop when you're trying to win a championship surrounding Joel Embiid. But what the hell do I know, Gint? I wouldn't say it cancels it out. Now, if they go out there with Joel Embiid and somehow is there a timetable on Danny Green? Like, is he day to day?
I haven't read anything on the injury report today.
Good stuff. Good work. Me neither. Love the preparation for the two Phaithful Fanatics. There was one last thing I wanted to say before we get to Joel Embiid tonight. Here it is. I am not one of those people that like really care what the national media says, Gint, like about Philly teams. Like I don't care that much. Because they're not as, plugged in. They just read something and react or whatever. But what I will say is, through the first 4 to 5, 6 games of the season, first 4 to 5 games on TNT, on ESPN, there's a lot of talk about, the Knicks are better than the Sixers already. The Bulls could be championship contenders, and they're going to finish ahead of the Sixers. The Hawks are better than the Sixers after last year, and they get Cam Reddish back, or DeAndre Hunter back, excuse me. And it's like, okay, well, I had work today, so like, what was the chatter? Does anyone know? Any of the viewers? Does anyone know what the chatter was like in the national media today? Was there a peep about that Bulls game? On Monday, was there a peep about that Hawks game on Saturday night?
No.
What about after they beat Dame and CJ? Was there a peep about that? No. Like I'm typically not one of those people that are like, talk about us. Like we won. Like I don't care about that. But like when you want to come out and say, when you're as well respected as Chuck and Shaq are, and you want to come out 3 games into the season and say that the Chicago Bulls and New York Knicks and the Atlanta Hawks are going to finish ahead of the Sixers. Well, again, it's one game, and maybe they do finish ahead of the Sixers. What the hell do I know? But when the Sixers beat the shit out of those teams, excluding the Knicks, I'd like to hear your rebuttal. No peep about the Sixers' last 2 games, and you won't. You won't until, the Sixers lose tonight against the Pistons. You know what the headline will be tomorrow again if the Sixers lose to the Pistons tonight?
Need Ben Simmons and
exactly.
Detroit.
It'll be right when it goes to that. Jalen Rose, I'm assuming.
Said I don't know. There's a lot. There's like way too many Jalen's in sports. Yeah. Maybe they were talking about Jalen Reagor.
Maybe. All right, let's talk about Joel Embiid and then get into tonight's game and get everyone up out of here. He hasn't settled in, is what you used early in the show. He hasn't looked comfortable yet. Again, last night, not his biggest fan at the moment as the last leg of a 10-leg parlay. I needed Joel Embiid to score 20-plus points, and he scored 18 on 6 of 18 shooting. And would he go from the line? I think he missed like 4 or 5 free throws as well. He doesn't look comfortable. He doesn't look right after there. He can, right just yet. He continues to hit the floor at an alarming rate. Like, dude, just stay on your feet. Outside of like the last block, because it was a game-saving block, game-ending block, cemented the win. It was a phenomenal play. Outside of that, stop hitting the floor so much, Joel. Like, you don't need to give every Philadelphia fan a heart attack every single time. And the comment down here is what I was going to say, and it's what he said last night. He mentions the new balls that the NBA are using this year. Paul George has mentioned it so far. What do you make of his early struggles, Gint? Is it the knee? Is it conditioning? Because he looks fatigued in the second quarter at times already. Yeah, I don't know. Is it the ball? Just speak to me about what it could be.
I'm going to go two ways with the ball because one, if multiple people are saying it, maybe it is weird to use a new basketball. There's also like the old man route where it's like, oh, we used to play with
right.
There's no run. The ball might be an issue now that you're talking about two guys that one's leading the NBA in scoring. That's Paul George saying something about it. And you're talking about a guy that almost won MVP last year. That's also bringing up. So maybe it's uncomfortable to start, but I think Joel's issues are lying in a much different way. I think he's catching the ball in places that last year he was catching it about 4 feet closer to the basket. He's not physically dominating as much. And I'm going to rule the knee thing out because I don't think Philadelphia would be playing him if the knee was really this issue, truthfully.
Well, apparently the MRI showed no issue either. He got an MRI on it.
I want to give them the benefit of the doubt that the knee is healthy and he should be playing. But again, the physicality is so different. We saw like little spurts of it with Luka Garza talking nonsense, and Joel Embiid kind of started to throw his body around a little bit differently. But I feel like we're not seeing that like anger side of him is the word I want to use for it. But he's catching the ball too deep, in my opinion. His numbers from like 16 to the 3-point line in terms of feet, I'm pretty sure he's only shooting like 27%. So he might like settling for jumpers, which I think fatigue really is where that lies when you're getting pushed off your spots. You're not getting enough legs in your jumpers. So that might be where Joel's really struggling. But again, the other side of the ball, he's been otherworldly. On the defensive end right now,
that's true.
Shout out Brock. Brock's been like tweeting a bunch of stats about it. He's been a true anchor, which he hasn't had to be.
Well, do you think that's where some of the fatigue plays in? Responsibilities 100%. That he didn't have last year, he has on one end of the floor now, and it's, exerting him a little too much to get down the other floor and go dominate in the paint.
100%. When you lose a 6'10" winger that was in the top 3 discussion for Defensive Player of the Year, there's just going to be more straight line drives and more contests and a lot more of that kind of stuff. So naturally, you're going to have to give more of an effort. But he's been awesome on that end.
Yeah, no, dude, it's weird. I think if you're right, if you want to give the knee, if you want to take the knee away from things, you want to give him and the Sixers the benefit of the doubt because apparently the MRI revealed no damage at all. It looks clean. My question would be then why did he say after the first game of the season he couldn't walk for 2 days? He said that. No one else said that. He said that. So like something it could be off with it if that's the case. Fatigue is the biggest thing to me though. He's hunched over, hands on his knees, sweat dripping. Now I get it when you're 7'2", 285, whatever the hell he is. And it's nothing new to us. We've seen him hunched over, and we see how much Joel Embiid, how much sweat he pours off of his face early in a game. But it's just early now. He's hunched over at the free throw line. He just looks exhausted at times at getting to the free throw line. When you talk about getting on the floor and where he's catching the ball, Gint, it's very hard to get down there 5-on-5 when, all eyes are on you defensively for the opponent. And you're the last guy crossing center court. And then you're trying to set up post position. It's going to be way more difficult because you're not, if Joel Embiid could get down, I'm not saying sprint down the floor every time, but if Joel Embiid could get down the floor and then be one of, the first couple guys down the floor and establish position, life would be a little easier. He's not. If he gets a defensive rebound, hold ball, people are getting back, drop it off to Maxey, and he trots up real slow with Maxey or whoever he gives the ball off to. Well, it's very difficult then when everyone defensively is already back set with their matchups. They got their double team, what they want to do schematically to Joel Embiid. He gets just inside the 3-point line, bang, body hitting him, right? Like Vucevic comes up, you're going to have to work to get down now. You know what I mean? So that's where fatigue plays an issue is if you can't get up and down the floor correctly, it's going to be a lot harder to establish yourself on the offensive side of the floor. With that being said, your defensive side is a strong argument because it's the truth. The dude has looked phenomenal on that side of the floor as well. He just might be having to do too much. The other night, what were me, you, and Scotty talking about? When he's one of the only guys, running out to close out on a open 3-point shooter. No one else is. So, just exerting himself more than he has had to in the past it is definitely, it's not a concern. Obviously, you like to see that defensive presence from Joel Embiid, that defensive effort, but it just makes you wonder how much it is affecting him offensively when he's that big of a human being. My only other thing I would throw in this conversation is that it affects shooting because if he's fatigued in his knee, I get that. But he's just not shooting the ball well at all this year for the most part. Not at all, but he just has not been shooting efficiently at all. He's a career, I think, 25 point per game scorer. I think he's averaging close to under 20 this year so far. I forget what his career field goal percentage is. He's under that early this year. He's had multiple games where he's 2 for 7 early, 6 of 18 last night. He's 5 of 16 another night. He just hasn't been efficient shooting the basketball. Now that's my bigger question mark. Is it the ball? I really don't like that excuse. I'm not saying that it's just an excuse. It's not the truth, but I don't like to hear that. Well, it's a different basketball. That's why I'm not shooting well. But I don't know.
It might, again, we keep harping on the name, but you're getting rid of a pass first, get guys in position type player like Ben and replacing him with a downhill, get to the rim at all costs type player with Tyrese Maxey. And like I mentioned about the Chicago game, like Doc kind of used him in a different way and used him, I don't want to say the word decoy, but as like a switch. He wanted to get his guards downhill more than he wanted to get the ball to Joel, it seemed.
Oh, well,
Go ahead.
No, that's a great point because I just want to piggyback off it for a second. In me needing 2 more points from Joel Embiid down the stretch, I'd pay closer attention to it than normally I just would. Down the stretch of a game, I'm a Sixers fan. I don't care who scores the ball because you know what I mean? Last night, I really just wanted Joel Embiid to put one more through the hoop. And like you said, Doc's kind of using, there was a lot of pick and roll. So whether it was Maxey or Seth down the stretch, Joel was being used in the pick and roll. And when he would roll, normally the game plan is get the ball to Joel. There was none of that. He was kind of a decoy screen, get out of the way. Seth's getting downhill one-on-one, pull up. Maxey's getting downhill, getting to the rim. So I did notice that last night, and you just brought it up, so I was like, oh.
Another thing to mention is we just had a comment about it. His free throw numbers are down, which the whole NBA's numbers are down. It's kind of what the league wanted to limit, but like he lived off getting to the line, getting in a rhythm from getting to the line. That's when the 15-foot jumper looks the most clean, when he shot it a couple times. He's not really getting that right now. Now, when the game starts to slow down, when the season gets closer towards the end, playoffs come around, he's going to get back to the line a ton because the ball's going to be in his hands a lot more. But for now, the shooting percentage will come. He's the most dominant player in the NBA. He just has to, the team took a big hit, and we've talked about it 1,000 times. This is a new regime, not a new regime, but just a different perspective that Joel hasn't played with in 3 years or 4 years,
right,
however long it's been with Ben. So it's something he's going to have to get used to. And for now, if he's able to be this defensive anchor and anchor what we don't have, which is lockdown defenders, I'd say. Matisse obviously excluding from that thing. But you look at the starting lineup tonight, it's Tyrese Maxey, Seth Curry, or I should say last night because I don't know who's starting tonight, but Tyrese Maxey, Seth Curry, and Furk. Those are 3 names that aren't guys that are going to go out and be Tony Allen and lock people up. So if he can hold his own and just be a defensive anchor for us, and his numbers are down the offensive side of the ball, but Seth's still carrying us to over 20 a game. Tyrese Maxey's getting this 14 to 16 point. We just got to run with it for now.
Yeah, man. All right. Let's get into predictions for tonight's matchup in Detroit versus the Pistons, and then let's get up on out of here as I got to go talk some football with Scotty after this on Turf Talk. Talk about one extreme high to an extreme low that I have to go and do shows on. But anyway, Sixers in Detroit. We do not know the starting five. Obviously, out of precaution, the Sixers were testing everybody for COVID after Isaiah Joe was put into the health and safety protocols earlier today. So Joel Embiid, no Joel Embiid, I don't know. Does anyone else test positive? I don't know the answer to that. Just going to assume that it's with Joel Embiid. I feel like normally we would have heard more of a peep that, they'll put him through pregame routine. I haven't seen any of those tweets today. So I'm going to say that the Sixers win tonight. Like you said, you called it kind of a trap game because it's not, but it is. Like the Pistons are that bad. It's hard to like call it a trap game where it's kind of just a mediocre team that you should beat, but you overlook them or you're coming off a high. The Pistons are that bad where it's not necessarily a trap game, but you're coming off of a big high. Now you got to travel and now you got to go play a team that, you're not really up to playing. And then you got to you're probably already focusing on getting the Bulls again on Saturday night in Chicago. I think the Sixers win. I think that right now, I don't know if it's everyone kind of just vibing together and coming together through all the adversity, we can call it, of the offseason. I don't know if it's something Doc has instilled in this locker in this offseason. I don't know if guys are buying in together. Whatever is going on, this team is vibing at an all-time high right now. They are playing together. They are playing for one another. Seth Curry is playing at an all-time high offensively. Tyrese Maxey's putting it together on both sides. Furkan Korkmaz is taking a step. George Niang has been one of the best pickups I've seen the Sixers make in years. So I'm going to say that the Sixers win. I'm going to go 76ers 111, Detroit 104. That's another thing. They held the Chicago Bulls to under 100 points last night.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's like the last 4 games they've held everyone under 100 besides Portland scored 103, I think, something like that.
That is crazy.
I'm going to go that they win also. I don't think they're going to lose tonight unless something comes out in the next 15 minutes that a receipt of 5 people.
Right.
But I think Philadelphia's going to win. I'll go with like 113 to 94 or something like that. They're going to win by a healthy margin tonight.
Okay. So now let me ask
you. All vibes this year. That was his Instagram caption today. And that's, like you said.
Joel?
Yeah. It's just a culture they've instilled. They were probably so done with the drama and they were ready to play. It looks like it.
So let me ask you something. Again, this is going to sound really weird because obviously beating the Chicago Bulls undermanned is a much more of an achievement and a more of a success than beating the Detroit Pistons tonight. But what kind of message would it send if the Sixers do what you're predicting and show up and just handle the Detroit Pistons? You get what I'm saying? Like, it's on paper, when you look back on this game, they beat the Pistons. Congratulations. But coming off of this high of this 4-game stand, you're still undermanned. You got to travel on a back-to-back. You go down. Normally, we see the Sixers play down to a team like this tonight. They come in and whoop Detroit's ass tonight and beat them by double digits, and it's not really close throughout most of the game. What kind of message does that send? It's not like, oh, we're here, we beat the Pistons, but it's, we're kind of all business right now.
I think that's a perfect way to say it, is we're all business. Go in, handle them, move on. Like you said, you get Chicago again Saturday. So just handle them tonight and just take it as like, this wasn't even marked on our calendar. We knew we can come in and handle this business. So that's the way I'll go with it.
I mean, it'll definitely get interesting if the Sixers pull out 5 straight wins heading into Chicago for a rematch and seeing what could possibly happen then and how long they could continue this streak undermanned. But I think that's going to wrap up today's episode of the Phaithful Phanatics Show. We want to keep it positive. We want to keep it light, not getting into those dreadful Eagles, even though they are coming off of a win. Again, the Flyers play tonight. I know you're excited. Again,
dude,
I'll Venmo you a whole $1 if you can tell me who the Flyers play tonight. No.
I wasn't. I know, bro. You said that. I'm trying to, dude. I feel like I saw someone tweet about it today.
I said it in the beginning of the show. Shows how much my co-host.
Is it Vancouver?
No, it's not Van. Here's
Dude, I
the
thought.
Penguins, bro. They play the Penguins.
Oh, that would have been like my prototypical guess. I was trying to remember what you said.
It
Dude,
wasn't
I'm
Vancouver.
on a college basketball kick, man. I'm
There you go. All right.
hockey's last on the list right now, man. Call of
That's
Duty comes
bad.
out
That's a
tonight.
bad take, dude.
Call of Duty comes out tonight too. Hockey is.
It's a bad take. Give me a prediction though.
They're gonna win 3-1.
Carter Hart coming off of a shutout and then holding the Pens in Pittsburgh to 1 goal. It'd be hell of an achievement. You watch Scott Long score again because he scored the other night. That's going to wrap up this episode of the Phaithful Fanatics show. And as you guys know, DSM Media and the Phaithful Fanatics are now brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped just launched their 4th-generation trimmer, the Lawnmower 4.0. You heard that right, the 4.0. Join over 2 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer just for you. 20% off and free worldwide shipping with promo code Phanatics at manscaped.com. Manscaped engineered the ultimate groin and body trimmer by focusing on intelligent functionality and an incredibly comfortable grooming experience. Their 4th-generation trimmer features a cutting-edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents thanks to their advanced skin-safe technology. I cannot talk tonight, Gint. This upgraded trimmer includes a multi-function on and off switch that can engage a travel lock. It also gives you the ability to turn the 4000K LED spotlight on and off when needed for a more precise shave. And did I mention the wireless charging? The new wireless charging system uses electromagnetic induction, which can help battery length last longer. Get 20% off and free shipping with code Phanatics at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com using our promo code Phanatics. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped. Your balls will thank you. For myself, for Gint, ring that bell, sound that horn, play that song. Have a nice night, everybody.